Hey guys, Darin Marques with Huntington and Ellis. I'm here today with Ask the Pro to talk to you about something that, every client or every agent, I should say, and it says, oh, I can get you top dollar, I can get you top dollar. It really comes down to not just the highest price point or gross dollar amount, but the bottom line. So when I talk about the bottom line, I mean making sure that I'm netting you the most amount of money at the end of the day after everything is said and done. One of the ways that I always like to do that, and one of the things I always suggest to clients when I'm listing a home, is get an appraisal. That's number one. And a lot of times people ask me, well, why would I get the appraisal up front? Isn't the buyer gonna pay for that? Or, why don't we wait until they actually come in with a loan or whatever? But the reason is because you wanna have a realistic idea of where the price point is of your home or what your home is worth. Now, I can come up with a price and tell you what I think it's worth. Another agent can come up with a price and tell you what they think it's worth. But at the end of the day, that's our opinion on what we feel that your home is worth. If the client or the buyer is getting a loan, they're gonna get an appraisal, right? So what we don't wanna do is set this false expectation that we can get you a certain price for your home based off of comps. All of a sudden we get a great offer, go into contract, we're 3 weeks down the road, all of a sudden appraisal comes back, and now we're $50,000 apart, okay? So that's where I find a lot of deals fall apart. There's two things I always see, which is appraisal and inspection that makes a deal fall apart. So the reason I get the appraisal is for two reasons. One, it gives you a realistic idea of what that price is gonna be from an appraiser. Two, if we do need to dispute it, then we can actually use that appraisal to go back and dispute it because I've got a certified appraisal from another appraiser. If you are lower, okay, or the appraisal comes in lower than what your desired list price is, then there's a couple things we need to do at that point. We sit down, we discuss it, and maybe it's not the right time to sell. Maybe it's too far apart and you have a certain bottom line or a certain price that is the price that you're looking for, and we just know the reality is that even based off the appraisal, it's not gonna work. Or we know how we're gonna negotiate now, which means either one, I know that when I get that offer coming in, and it's at list price, and we know that we're $50,000 short on the appraisal, I know that I'm either gonna, one, counter back and ask for the buyer to agree to come up above appraisal and make sure that they've got the funds available that they can come up with that additional amount. And then the other part of that is that we're not gonna have an issue 3 weeks down the road, because I would rather take the risk up front and resolve that versus getting 3 weeks down the road, appraisal comes in short, now we're going back and forth, sellers come down to their bottom line, buyers come up to their top dollar. Now we've got this $50,000 gap. Who's gonna close it? So that's one of the main things I always recommend to do up front is let's get the appraisal done. Number two is getting an inspection. And again, people ask me, well, you know what? The buyer's gonna get an inspection anyway, and then we're gonna have to go back and forth and decide, what's gonna get repaired. Well, you're exactly right. And again, that's where I see a lot of deals fall apart is that, the seller, we get an offer, seller comes down to their bottom line, buyer comes up to their top dollar. All of a sudden we get 2 weeks down the road, we get an inspection report back with 25 items, and we find out that there's a $10,000 difference or a $10,000 cost of what these repairs are gonna cost us to get done. And now the seller's saying, nope, I'm not coming down anymore. I've come down as far as I'm going to. Buyer says, nope, I've spent all the money that I'm gonna spend. I'm not coming up any further. And now we've got this $10,000 gap, and it changes the bottom line for what the seller thought that they were gonna net on that property. And so what I like to do is I like to get that inspection done up front. Let's get all of those little items fixed. Now, the reality is when the buyer comes in with their own inspector, then they're gonna find things. That's what they're there to do. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to limit or mitigate the number of items that they find during that inspection, and especially major things. So I'll give you an example. We were representing the buyer in a situation. We had the inspection report come back, and there was an $11,000 Sub-Zero refrigerator that was broken. Now again, this is where the deal almost fell apart because seller had come down to their bottom dollar, buyer wasn't coming up anymore. So we were able to work it out at the end of the day and make things work, but there was a point there where it looked like the deal was gonna fall apart, and it really becomes stressful for both parties. So again, one of the things I'm trying to do is let's eliminate the stresses as we go through this transaction. Buying and selling is already stressful enough. Let's try to get all those things out of the way, or at least be really transparent about what we have to deal with as we go into contract. So again, getting that inspection, making sure that we rectify all those items, get those things repaired. Think of it this way. If you go buy a luxury car at a luxury car dealership, what are you looking for? You're gonna buy the certified pre-owned, whether it's a Land Rover or a Mercedes or Cadillac, whatever it is. You want to know that they've done that 100-point inspection on that car, and that you're paying that premium dollar, you're getting a premium car. Well, keep in mind, that's how the buyer feels when they're walking in to purchase your home. They don't want a list of 25 items coming back on your home, because now they're thinking, wow, this home could have a lot more problems, maybe things that we didn't find. All of a sudden they get a list back or an inspection report back of 3 items on a 10,000 square foot home. They feel really good about what they're purchasing. So that's one of the things I find is really important, as well as the inspection. So make sure that you're getting that done up front as well. The other thing is staging. One of the things I do as I take a listing is I always bring in my stager with me, and I have her go through the house with me with the sellers, and give her input as well. You know, I always like to joke that I can barely match my shoes and my jeans. And so the last thing you want is design advice from me. I'm a realtor, not a designer. And so I bring in somebody who is a specialist in that area to look at the home and give you certain points. Now, that doesn't just mean that, you know, maybe certain things don't match, but it's also the way the furniture is staged. I'll give you an example. Went into a home, the way they had the furniture spread out in the living room really made that living room look small. We reorganized some things around, moved the furniture in a little bit, and all of a sudden it looked like they had this huge great room, which made a really big difference when we took, you know, photography and videography, also in the presentation of showings. Also, as the stager was walking through, she'd point out things like light bulbs that were out, or making sure certain curtains were open, or taking down, you know, dated drapery so that it doesn't make the home feel dark, but it has a really great presentation. And I always try to stress to my sellers that, you know, keep in mind, this is a retail experience when your clients walk in a door. It's the same thing when you go shopping and you walk into an auto dealership or you walk into the mall. It's all about the retail experience. It's the same thing with your home, making sure that the home smells nice, making sure that there's music playing, that it's well lit, and that it's a really great experience when that buyer walks through the door. That's what's gonna help us sell that home. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is to make sure that you're getting the greatest and the most amount of money is obviously having an agent that knows how to negotiate. You know, and that comes from experience. It doesn't matter how many books you've read. It doesn't matter, you know, how great of, you know, what you've learned in your life. Until you've actually applied that experience and you've had those experiences. And that's where, again, it comes down to selecting an agent who has experience in the luxury market. But the negotiating is going to be a major part of that as well, is knowing what you can get away with in that price range and what you can't get away with and what to ask for. And also having the confidence as a successful agent that you know that you can push back a little bit and still make that deal work. So that's a really, really important factor. And then again, to make sure that you're getting the highest price point for your home and the most amount of money, is it really comes down to great service again. And that doesn't mean just with the seller and the buyer, but that's the way the listing agent treats the buyer's agent as well. I view all buyer's agents as my customer as well. Even though I'm negotiating against them, I want to treat them well. I want them to have a good experience with me, so that when I take other listings down the road, they're going to look for my listings to sell. So hopefully those are a few tips today to help you understand how to get the most amount of money for your home when it comes down to the bottom line, not just the gross dollar amount. So if you have any questions, please give me a call. Darin Marques, Huntington and Ellis, 702-485-7755, or you can email me, Darin@dmgluxury.com.